What is your intention for today? And how do you let it move you and your choices? That intention behind our presence is something that doesn't just impact our own well-being, but also our ability to give and contribute to those around us, to build connection and participate in life. So much in this world nudges us towards solitude, self-sufficiency, even isolation. But we were made for contact, made to be exposed to life and not hidden from it. If you're anything like me, the question of how to live a good life might spin in your head quite a lot. And if in this moment in time in particular, you find yourself grasping for answers, do yourself a favor. Don't stick around to listen. Instead, go and do something for someone else. Help a neighbor, call a friend, have a coffee with a colleague. Remember that you are alive and that your being here matters. Strike that. Don't just remember. Give yourself a moment, an experience to truly feel it. And if you are here for the ride, to listen to Carina and I as we explore dimensions of inner and outer connection, welcome. It matters that you are here. We hope you don't find a single answer, yet many new opportunities to explore. Apart from yoga, how is the start of your day?
The start of my day was an ordinary start with I get up, I let my cats in, I fetched the newspaper for my husband, and then I sat down, lit my little oil lamp, and today it was lavender in the oil. Oh yes, because it's calming. And I chose that. I didn't feel very worried, but I did that. And then I started writing my morning pages. And while doing that, as usual, struggling a little bit with one of my cats who wants to sit on my lap between me and my writing.
At the center.
At the center of everything. They're really my best inspirators in this. Just with the biggest confidence, just telling me, now it's time for love. But not now, I say. Yes, now.
No.
Okay. What if I could learn from that now?
What would you do?
What if, I'd be even more intrusive to my poor husband. I used to say that one of my most important drugs. I think we have talked about that before. The contact. Oh, but I need contact. We have a new movement in the mornings. When we say good morning, we take up our, what do you call this? First finger?
Index finger?
Index finger. And pointing that to the other. And then we meet with our pointing fingers. And then we don't say good morning even. Did you sleep? No. Or maybe, yes. And you? Yes. Good. That's all. That's the morning greetings.
But it's a greeting. It's a little ritual.
It's a greeting, yes. A little ritual and a little establishment of some kind of contact. I see you. You see me. We're here. Okay.
Yeah.
No more just now. But the cats, they don't do that. No. Now it's time for love. But I'm writing. Never mind. No. So that was the start of the morning. And then when I had writing my morning pages, I went to my home yoga studio in the living room. Yes. Rolling out the yoga mat, taking my prayer stool from Tessie, and taking out of the cupboards incense, a little candle, and my books, The Pilgrims for Future, and my mother's Book of Psalms. That's my equipment for the morning session. Then I roll out, and I started today with Dan Siegel's Movements for Integration.
Oh,
Have you heard about them?
no, but I'd love to hear more.
It's a small series of takes about 10 minutes perhaps of through the body integrating different polarities in our lives. It's a very important routine for me, and I've learned so much from it.
How do you, what does that look like? Tell me more. I'm so curious.
It's based on a lot of research and they have started out from Qigong and Tai Chi. So there are some elements of integration in different dimensions. And in the beginning, one of the most important parts was the one where you both give and receive. Like a breath.
Yeah.
Both give and receive. And this, we need to do both.
Yes.
Couldn't choose just one or the other. And then there's the mui movement. Me plus we is mui. And then you start with crossed hands over your chest, and then you embrace the we and back to me. So the mui movement. And that is so comforting for me, reminding me of all the people around me, my work, my colleagues, my family, my neighbors, the whole church, every people of goodwill. I'm not going to do this day by myself, but we can do it together.
Oh,
it's really beautiful.
Sounds like a very grounding reminder.
Yeah, it is. And then there is one narrative integration of the future, the now, and the past. I've learned to do this series of movements from an internet course with Dan Siegel, one of my house guides and gods. So I've tried on stage. Said, well, I invite you to come to this. It's a vulnerable situation. I'm going to show you what I do in the mornings. And that was just magic, having a whole room filled with, like, in a while there were more than, I think the most were like 300.
Wow.
And to see them do the same things as me, and afterwards saying, I like that.
Sounds like a very intimate and connective way to start something.
Exactly, and beyond the words. That's very important. I think most of our existential experiences is beyond the words.
Tell me more about that.
Well, I've been working a lot with trying to educate or train people in how to speak to very seriously ill persons. We have something called serious illness conversations that we have taken to Sweden, and I've been working with that a lot. And I always feel after these educating sessions that it's too much about words. What are you going to say? It's not very important what you say. The most important thing is how you connect, the contact, how you enter the room with your body, if you're brave enough to be present and to be there with someone. And the best way of doing that is being silent. Just shh, don't say anything. See if you just can be there. But that it comes with you need some courage to do that. And you have to trust yourself in being there and trust the patient that they can handle that you're quiet. So you have to enter the room with that kind of presence in silence. And these meetings between the patient and the family and me as a doctor, it's very, very important, very vulnerable, sometimes very painful meetings. And that is when their whole existential, all the questions and the challenges, they're so present in the room, and then I need to find a way of doing that in a silent way. So if we could be better at finding our ways home to our own body, and to start there, to find a solid ground and trying to reach out from that place in silence. But of course you have to talk as well. But I think most of the big and very grounded support for persons in a vulnerable and painful situation is that I'm here with you. I'm not going anywhere. I can share this experience of being. I mean, the worst thing you could have is to feel abandoned. And for that sake, now I'm talking against what I said before, but being mute when if you feel mute in a situation where you need to express the wishes and the pain, and we have to try to get the patient tell us. And then I need to be silent.
But I feel like what I'm hearing is also that there is a difference between being mute and being silent.
Exactly.
Where even just listening to you, experiencing the mutedness feels more disconnected. Is this quality where there is no resonance between us? And I also get curious, it's so easy to say that we get to come back to our bodies and be grounded and silent and present. And yet we both know that there is a difference between someone who can do it and somebody who comes in muted.
Mm.
How do we cultivate that quality in ourselves, do you think?
Well, I think, or I could even say that I'm convinced that we have this magic thing up here called our brain, and you have the whole neuroplasticity, the possibility of learning new things, trying to find ways of doing things in a new way and in a better way. And I'm truly convinced that you can get better in being present by having your intention and your attention to that, to giving that quality an important role in your life. I want to be present in my life and together with people who I meet. One of my colleagues said a while ago, I'm trying not to focus on computer time as a doctor. This what I write in the medical records, and I have my focus on FaceTime, the time when I'm together with the patient. And it's really something that I, as a doctor, have to remind myself every day that is the most important part. If I am going to do the most important things first, then I need to be present together with the patient. And I couldn't write that in the medical records. I've been present together with the patient. Even if we try to say that listening is also an action. And that is very important for the ones that seek us.
Yeah.
I mean, as a psychiatrist and oncologist, I've been in lots of meetings with patients, and what they really need is this existential experience of being seen, being heard, and that I'm truly curious about who are you? Tell me. And I think that we can foster that by practicing. And then is all this with what way you do it, if it's yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong or meditation in different kinds. I don't think that is the most important part, but it's the intention of focusing on presence. And that is always through your senses, through your body, by trying to find that hub in the middle, and the wheel of awareness, that you could observe what you hear, what you see, if there's any smellings. So these experiences of the senses and how it feels. How does it feel in my body? I mean, you don't have anywhere else to recognize your own feelings.
No.
They're always in your body. So you have to connect to them. Okay, so today it's a very sad day, or maybe I'm tired, or feel like I don't have much energy. And another day you could change the world. I'm going out. I feel like Superman. It's not that often, but I mean, trying to find myself in exactly this moment and in this actual life.
I was thinking, as I was taking a walk this morning before our meeting, and I've had the privilege of having a lot of conversations with you before. And as you mentioned, you've been in a lot of rooms where the need for that presence is really taken to an extreme in moments that are the most difficult in many people's lives. And I know you've always said to me, the only thing that we know for sure is that everything ends and that we die. And yet, as I was walking and reflecting, I thought, it's interesting because I also feel like it's the only thing we're sure of, and yet we're so differently exposed to it. And we have such different capacity to be rooted and present in the face of it. On top of what you're saying of utilizing our senses, which I love, there's also this thought of coming into contact with these different types of difficult moments. And it doesn't necessarily, I guess, have to be actual people dying. There are many ways to approach the death of something in our life, but yeah, I think I stayed with that thought also, the importance of having experiences of those things in a way, because it helps us trust our senses in those moments too. Which I think usually the first time of anything, it's like when you become a parent, you trust none of your senses. You're thrust into this situation and you think, oh, I don't know if I can trust my intuition. I don't know what's happening. And then as time goes and as things evolve, you learn how to come back to yourself. And yeah, so I think I just wanted to add that dimension because I was really thinking about it before coming into the conversation this morning, how differently that can play out for us, both because life serves us very different experiences, but also because we choose very differently to approach things. If we intentionally choose presence or seek to avoid, I don't even know what the question is. Kind of just that there is something about allowing ourselves to experience a fuller spectrum of life. And I think that's associated with presence.
And I guess it's not black or white, that you're either present or not. I mean, there are many different levels in that as well. And when I listened to you, I thought that you're, in a very fine way, describing one of the dimensions. I used to think about Irvin Yalom's 4 existential challenges, that we all humans have the same challenges. One is death, and one is the choice or the responsibility. And I mean this, all the choices we have. If you know that there is a choice, a possible choice of being present, then you could make that choice. But if you don't realize that that is one of the ways you could act or choose in this situation, then you must go on your reflexes, and they will probably tell you to please get out of here because it's dangerous. Someone said that a good psychotherapy ends up in a position where the client or the patient sees that there is a choice. Finding, okay, I could choose to leave that work or that spouse or situation, or I could choose to stay. But I have the choice. And I think seeing that you could, in a situation where you meet someone who's struggling or dying or whatever, this person in front of you, if you can see that you have the choice to stay. And I think that is one of the most important things that we really should try to learn, and to help us all understand that you don't have to be that afraid of these situations. It's enough if you just stay there. You could be silent. And I have in my life, one strong moment was when my father suddenly died in an accident. And I have a very good friend her life has really not been kind to her. So she's been struggling a lot with attachment difficulties from early life and so. And when we got back home after being there sharing and seeing him dead and all this, and I came home and I was very tired, and I heard the doorbell go on, and outside she was standing there, and she said, Carina, I don't know anything about what to say because I haven't learned that. I just wanted to give you a hug. She did that. We stood there holding, hugging for a while, and then she just said bye. She left. And that was really a brave choice. I don't know how to do this, but I bother about you, and I wanted to give you a hug. That's beautiful. And she saw, thanks to having been through a lot of therapy and struggling with her own life, she knew that I could choose to go there even if I don't know what to do. It's not about what I'm going to do. I'm showing up. I'm willing to share this with you. I couldn't make your father alive again. And I can't say anything that makes the whole thing so much better. But I can share this with you. I show up and I'm willing to be here with you. And that if we could start trusting that, I mean, there will be a big difference in our world.
Yes.
Knowing that it's enough. You don't have to say the right things.
No, our presence is already important.
Yeah. And already enough.
I love that. That was also a very profound experience for me when I was doing breathwork guide training.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that work is just witnessing people breathing and looking at their body as different experiences move through. And because the other person is breathing in a very specific pattern, you also don't really open up for a lot of conversation. Even that was such a profound lesson. And I think not because anyone told me that, but because I got to sit and hold the space and experience it with my senses and my whole body. And it does take time to trust that in ourselves. And as you say, like the willingness to show up with zero knowledge. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I trust that me showing up is going to be enough.
Yeah. And the way the world is changing, we get less and less of the time spent in that room and in that position, in that experiences of that the presence is enough. Because if you only have digital contacts, SMS, maybe you don't even talk on the phone because you only, and if you meet people, you do that on Zoom, or, I mean, you don't have your senses much there. And maybe something like if we could see how the person looks. But you lose so much of the quality of the contact when you're not in the same room. That is my experience, but I'm going to be completely analog. If I could be, but I couldn't have met you without the digital contacts. So I must try to remember to celebrate the possibilities as well.
Yeah.
Integrating.
I can relate to that struggle, though. I mean, I'm very grateful to technology for allowing me to preserve and maintain and develop all kinds of relationships and conversations. And I also really worry about that looking at other people, fellow adults, or my own children, and kind of thinking about what are the capacities that we really need to have in life and how much of them I also, as you say, kind of feel are being robbed of us when we're only using technology. I remember in my previous work, this was a conversation that we had a lot. How full generations of young people could come into a workplace and not know how to read a room or how to understand emotion on somebody's face, or at least know what to ask when you see that something is arising for somebody. And just even based on the small conversation we've had so far, I'm thinking if there is anything I want to bestow on my own children or anything I want to contribute to, is our ability to hold more complexity or experience more nuance. And I wonder what I'm sure the balance looks different for everyone, but as similar to you, I reflect on that. It's very often we end up thinking it's either analog or completely digital. And the thing is, we still exist in this world. So I'm always back in that middle of, okay, how do I make choices that don't sacrifice these muscles, these capabilities that I want to maintain? And I don't know. I don't know that I have any answers, but it's definitely a conversation that I have with myself.
Yes, and it's, I mean, as things are now, it's a very special kind of luxury of having the possibility of making that choice. For many people, they don't have it. They're stuck in a reality where there is not so much choice. So you have the big race of having that luxury. Must try to remember to celebrate that we have a choice, and then trying to do it.
Right.
I think it's really one of the most important issues in my life at the moment, and for having this, seeing the world changing. I heard on some kind of radio a few weeks ago that 75% of all the restaurant food made in the US is home delivery. 75%. So people don't go out into restaurants to meet. And then my fantasy came, oh yes, and then when the home delivery comes to that family or a couple or so, they go to the door and they fetch the food and they go to their own screens, looking at different films. I mean, there's so much isolation. And that is some kind of epidemic of getting more and more isolated. And it's very dangerous. And of course we don't feel well then.
No, of course
and then
we
of
don't.
course we have these epidemics of anxiety and depressions. And I mean, we're devoid of contact. Of course we don't feel well. We don't have contact with our own bodies, and we don't have contacts with our important persons, and with neighbors, and with the community around us. Everyone is just isolated, alone. It's not good for us.
No.
I mean, we're social mammals. The needs are still there.
I feel like there are so many trends and storylines and different types of tools and structures that push us into isolation at the moment. Not just technology or like access to home delivery or all of these things that are for our convenience. There's what I see in the self-development space, also a lot of talk about, eliminating toxicity or kind of saying no or turning down different types of relationships that are of a certain character. And I'm all for having integrity and not putting up with bad things from people. And at the same time, I saw this clip from a breathwork teacher that I follow, Jamie Clemens, and he was saying, I'm paraphrasing here, but he was talking about also this need to interact with each other's difficulty. Today, it's a lot of, oh, you're showing up with this bad stuff and I'm going to reject you because you're bringing me down with you. And that might be true in certain cases. And it also might be that that's the moment you also get to practice your own rootedness and your own expansiveness and being there and being in connection and in interaction. And I stopped and listened to it twice because I thought, oh, I felt some sense of relief that somebody was saying that we're not all going to show up perfectly every time. We're not all going to have our shit together all of the time. And part of existing here together is that sometimes we get to be that person who's struggling, and sometimes we get to be the harbor, the roots, the stable person, the one who knocks on somebody's door to give them a hug. And yeah, even so, listening to you, I see all these different threads that kind of pull us apart. I still somehow feel hopeful on the inside, but it's very sad to say it.
It is very sad to see it happen and feeling worried about what kind of world will our children and grandchildren grow up in. But I'm quite convinced about this pending. I think we're seeing some kind of revolution of the world of senses and connection and being together, togetherness. No one of us can live our lives alone, even if very many people now don't understand that that is what their choices lead them to. And in all the big world religions, almost all of it is about the others. Who am I together with? What is a good life? A good life is not all about me. It's about me. I need to be good to myself if I'm going to be good to someone else. But you couldn't end up being just good to yourself and think that that will be a good life. Because you're not alone. You must be together with the others. I mean, all the Bible stories about who is my neighbor. I don't know what it's called in English, but it's the one who shows mercy. What is that? To show someone mercy. To know that we have to connect in this, because this is one part of being human. Next time it's me. If I have the capability of being there for another person, then that is what I'm going to do. And that is also, if you're interested in what happens to the brain, that is when your brain starts firing with dopamine and all this good stuff. When you do something for another person, that is very, very rewarding. Doing this good thing to another person. But we're wired to do that. And of course our brains, they miss that part if we live our own lives only for me and for my own well-being. And as you said, this getting all the toxicity out of your life. But who wants a perfect life? And who could live a whole life if you just have your own well-being in focus? It couldn't be just my own, because you couldn't, I mean, about this integration, I can't take a very good care of myself on my own. I'm a human being. I need the others, and they need me. We're connected. We have to be there with compassion and presence and sharing pain and hope. Because if you feel a lot of pain and you have someone who is willing to be there with you, the pain gets less. And if you have a lot of joy, and you need to share that with someone. That is one of our deepest needs. And if you don't feel hope, if you reach out to someone and the other person says, I don't have any hope either. At the same time, you both feel a little bit more hope because we're in this together.
Yeah.
We're hopeless together. That's better than being hopeless alone. In some way, it's not because I need to be more hopeful, but I dare to share it with you. Sharing that I don't feel much hope. Okay, neither do I. So how do you do that?
Yeah.
Then you're in connection. Then you could say, this is a hard part for me. Yeah, I could relate on that. I feel the same. The resonance again.
The resonance. I've been thinking a lot about that. Two things came up as you were talking. One is that resonance. I've been observing this. There's a lot of talk about our fear of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in this year, I've kept coming back to how much worse it feels to experience a lack of resonance. Rejection still has this clarity. There's resonance in rejection too. And it might not feel pleasant, and it might play into our insecurities. But lack of resonance it holds on to you. And it's like it leaves this open space waiting for somebody to bounce back. At least for me, I found that takes up so much more space in my being when there is no resonance than when I get clear yes or a clear no. That is a more contained emotion that I can kind of take care of. But when I'm waiting for resonance, it's like you're just standing holding your breath with open arms, and it isn't, nobody's gonna know. Okay, nobody's coming, and there's, I don't know, there's something that drains you of energy in that.
Some kind of abandonment.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the worst places to be in. To be abandoned, powerless, or numb.
Muted.
Mute. I mean, we need this contact, and we're here. We're here together in this horrible situation. But you're here with me.
Yeah.
So that is a special kind of resonance, really. But I think also, when you say this fear of being rejected, I mean, that comes always in the flow of life, downstream of you being brave enough to reach out. Because if you don't do that, you don't get rejected, but you don't have any chance of having any contact.
No.
So, I mean, there's some courageous moments before you experience this rejection. Because that is, sometimes you turn down all these lights trying to strive for connection. But if you want to have contact, you have to reach out, and then you have to be ready to be welcomed or rejected. And many people, they have finished their trials. They're not trying to get connection because they're so afraid of this pain of being rejected. So if you're rejected, you should celebrate that. I've been brave enough to try. Next time, you will not be rejected. Perhaps. If you try and try again and try again, and try to take good care of yourself in that pain of someone say that I don't want to. Nope, I'm not going to give you that.
Yeah.
Now that's very painful.
I love that reframe. And I was brave enough. I was brave enough to reach out. Another thing that came up as you were talking, and I hear you talking about this interaction between caring for ourselves and contributing to the world around us and the people around us. And at least for me, like a very big, I don't know what to call it, maybe a hurdle, a thought pattern that I had to get over was the idea that caring for ourselves is selfish. What story do you tell yourself about that? Because I hear you talking about it in what feels like a very balanced way, but what's your relationship to it?
I struggle with exactly the same patterns of feeling selfish when I spend too much time on trying to get my own well-being better. So I guess I think it's a pattern that we all share. And it's really, I mean, again, it's about integrating the need, my own actual needs of being seen and taken care of. And the best person to do that is usually me, because if I could learn that, nowadays I have as a background for on my telephone, I have a photo of myself when I was 5. And that little girl, I need to take care of her, and that I can do. That is good. But then I also need to find a way of taking care of the others. And that is actually my own need of connection. My need of being a part of something else than my own. But I still think it's an ordinary day struggle to have yourself as one of the person on the top 10 list of persons whose needs you should fill.
Yeah. But
And usually there are more than 10 before it's my turn.
I think a thing that I've, in the past maybe year or two, that also comes back to what we've been talking about, the quality of our presence, is that I actually chose that as the center for my choices. Not just my choices for interaction and contact, but also my choices for self-care. And so if I hold this vision for how I want to be present in conversation as a parent, as a partner, as a friend, as a daughter, as a sister, what do I need and get to give myself in order to hold that intention, actually, that intention of presence? That said, many of the choices didn't feel easy at all at first. Like, they felt selfish. It's a
So
daily...
how do you do that now? Did you find a way of...
It's still a conversation. There's less friction in it, I think. And there's less resistance, which is nice, because there's enough resistance to take care of in life without that being there. And I think it came down to what we were touching on before, of giving myself enough experiences of something else working that I could learn to trust those choices for myself. It all starts always very small. So first I say no to this thing that I've never said no to before. And then I see, oh, wow, actually that did make me feel more energized, and it did make me show up in a better way to this. And so next time it comes around, I can say no, and it feels a little bit easier. And allowing that to be something that unravels very slowly and with a lot of grace towards myself. I don't know that there's a way, and I think the two things that I have grasped onto have been the clarity of the intention, the quality of presence that I want to have in my life, not just for myself, but for my participation in life. And the grace of allowing myself to make that evolution be something very tiny, something that consists of very small steps and experiments, rather than starting maybe at walking into that room of something, of somebody who's about to die or has a serious illness. Maybe that wouldn't be the place where I start practicing the quality of my presence. Maybe I start in the small circle of opportunity that surrounds me and then expand it. I think those two approaches have certainly expanded my ability to feel less selfish when I take care of myself.
That's beautiful. And a slow process with intention and some kind of inner compass telling you that I want to go in that direction.
That direction. Yeah.
That's what I'm heading for. Maybe in the end of your life, you don't have to get there this year or next year.
I don't need.
I like that inner compass metaphor because you don't have to go in a very steady pace, but you know what you're aiming for, what your intention is. You have 360 degrees of possible directions every day. You could change and go in another direction. But this reflection on where am I heading? What is my intention? I want to be more present in my own life and for the others. Okay. What is the first tiny little step?
Yeah.
What is the choice I can make today?
I also think I don't hold illusions that I will ever arrive. It's more kind of this bouncing between the sense of direction and my sense of inner compass. And I kind of resonates between those in a sense of, okay, if here's where I want to go, what is it in me that I need? And then back and forth. And this choice, is it bringing me in that direction or isn't it? And that's not to say I can't change direction. I'm sure I will still have, knock on wood, a lot of life left to to live. But there's something about that interaction, I think, for me, where there's the direction and there's the presence with myself.
And inside the direction and intention, you have your values. I mean, what is important? What if I have to choose one thing or one way? What is the most valuable part? I think we have to go back there all the time.
Yes.
What do I do first? What is the first priority?
I think values and even a level beneath or below that is your sense and your senses experience of which value is right. I think there's something that happens when we make the values a fixed, kind of a fixed item. Where we stop involving our senses to know if that's actually the right thing for us.
To calibrate.
So there's also, I feel like, this quality of calibration against the values all of the time. And sometimes things change rapidly and sometimes you stick with something for always. But I also witness this in people, how little contact we have with how and why we pick what's important to us. And that also has to come from that well in all of our senses. So there's a lot of layers of cultivating that, at least in my world, that are interesting and also challenging.
And I think there's always something, for me, I often think about in the Christian tradition, you have this vocation. You have your vocation. There's something outside of me who's calling me, telling me where to go and how to do this. And the older I get, the more I think that I can see that there are some signs or traces or tracks of some kind of thing, energy, something in the universe outside of me who is giving me small helps in the choosing that way, how to live that way, along that way. And I used to think that all my big decisions, like when being a biologist, suddenly found myself starting to study medicine at the beginning of my family life and everything. I didn't make that choice. I would say someone sent the papers It must have been me. But I don't remember doing that. It was like some kind of autopilot, just filling that paper in and sending it to the university, both.
Yes,
And then
both.
suddenly, that was the beginning of a road that okay. And if someone should have been talking to me, trying to make me use that part of my brain, Carina, was that a wise decision? Having a 1-year-old at home and maybe more children on the way, being a parent and a medical student, is that a wise decision? I don't know. I just recently made that decision, actually. I don't know why. But so there's a lot of what happens inside of me and being connected and in my senses, but I need to have that humility of leaving that part of my life open to some kind of guidance, or there's something drawing or pulling me into something that I didn't choose. I think there's an intention in the universe.
I love that. I also don't know how to describe it, but I recognize your experience, and I've definitely made a lot of decisions in my life exactly in that way, where it feels like there is no friction between me and that choice. Even if I also intellectually know that that choice can be challenging, and it's there isn't that much sense making involved. Is this magnetic quality? I also describe it as a pull. And when you do this, I'm like, even the gesture you're making is like taking something and pulling your body forward. I love that dimension that you're adding. I think it's so important. And even coming back to all the things we've talked about, that's also connection. And this cultivation of our inner roots so that we can connect outwards, so that we can allow ourselves to resonate, to build relationships, to listen to the little crumbs, the pull, the things that are bringing us forward.
Yes, and being brave enough to listen. Because sometimes those calls from the outside wants us to do things that we sometimes feel, but I don't know if I dare. Can I do that? It will take me, I have my 2 words, grace and grit. And I would say that the grace in having this call, something makes me, this non-friction. Suddenly I did that. And then after that, it's not only grace.
No.
Then the pendulum swings over to grit.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, possibilities quite often show up in working clothes.
Yes.
All right, here they are.
Immediately as you're talking, I was thinking, I've been with my husband for 17 years. We met when we were 22, so we were young. And after we moved in together, I think after maybe 4 or 5 months together, because I was studying abroad, and I was abroad from London. So I was abroad in a double sense, and he ended up coming to London and moving in with me. And now when I talk to people about it, they're like, surprised? Why did you do that so quickly? And I said, well, it felt right. And I thought, if it works, it's great. We didn't waste any time. And if it doesn't, well, we didn't waste any time trying. And and it felt good. And at the same time, I think, even to the metaphor of the relationship, there's this attraction to something or someone at first. And after, you get to choose it every day.
Exactly.
Even on the days when it feels difficult, then comes the grit and the choices and the devotion and this kind of nudge from the universe of, I'm just checking, are you really here for it?
Mm-hmm.
I found this quote a few years back when I decided to leave corporate, and it was something along the lines of, the universe is going to give you exactly what you ask for, and then it's going to send you something to see if you're going to fuck up what you asked for.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of things came along the way where I thought, this is the thing that asks me to fuck it up. And I have to stick to this choice that pulled me in and stay devoted to it. I mean, after you can always laugh about it, but in the moment it feels almost impossible to keep going. And yet I've never regretted any of the choices I've made like that in my life.
It's beautiful. I mean, if you do the choices, and even if that means that you have to arrive willingly, daringly entering that room, where you need to have a lot of grit and decisiveness and perseverance. I will do this because it's important.
There's sometimes this perception of choices that we make intuitively or in attunement with ourselves, that there can be this expectation that it's supposed to be easier. I don't know if my experience is that it isn't necessarily easier at all. The experience isn't easier.
It very seldom is.
It very seldom is. Maybe you just have a little bit more conviction to help you choose it in the long term. Oh, this is really staying with me, this balance between grace and grit. Oof. And grace in the grit.
Exactly.
I love that you have this rootedness in faith. And I also know we live in Sweden, which is a very secular country where maybe that type of faith, this is an assumption I'm making, but also how I experience conversations to be, that faith isn't always as accessible, maybe, or the conversation about faith isn't even always had as much for everyone. And you who are with people in rooms where, our faith is really tried, tested. What do people rely on if they don't subscribe to a belief system, or what do they grasp for?
The answer that comes to me is that the connectedness in different shapes are always a part of that struggle. And the connectedness for all people is about the relationships to what's outside of me. And I would say that we grasp for that connectedness in the way that we've been living our lives. I think that I, as my mother, in my last days or hours, I will reach out to the connectedness to what I call God, because I think something in the universe will welcome me when I exit. I hope that there is someone meeting me. So I will try to reach out to activate that kind of connectedness, but still the connectedness to my important human beings, to my family. And as I had the grace of being there together with my mother during her last hours, that connectedness to other persons or to nature or to places or to different kind of situations where you feel that you're part of something that is bigger than yourself. I think that is maybe one of the common denominators in the last hours or days or weeks. And that is what I'm trying to make people who are working with dying people, that is one of the most important things that we could do. We could try to understand what is this person's connectedness, and is there a way of keeping that accessible or alive, even if the person is lying in a bed and not being able to do something. But maybe you could have that grandchildren on an iPad, or maybe you could have an sounds of the sea on a CD or a sound in the room. Even if we couldn't take the person to the sea to reconnect, we could activate that experience of that. It's been really, really important for me, and I love to hear the waves. But that we could create here in the room. And that is always comforting, I would say.
Yeah.
Trying to be able to reconnect to that has been my connectedness through my life. And then relationships comes with a lot of fuck-ups and conflicts, and if your family have been filled with conflicts your whole life, it will be the same when you're going to die. So we should watch out for trying to think that we all die in acceptance and peace and forgiveness. Unfortunately, that is not the case. You don't have to accept that you're dying. You're going to die anyway. That's how life is. Not a very hopeful ending, but that is the truth.
What's the hopeful rewrite to that?
Probably that you've been able to handle your life up to now, and then you will probably be able to handle also the conflicts. Because that's what you've been training.
Yeah.
That's what you've been doing. And sometimes we could help people to reconnect. But you shouldn't give anyone the impression that we always are successful. That is also a part of life. That vulnerable place of being imperfect. Not able to.
Maybe I'm strange for somehow finding that comforting.
Yeah, maybe. But you are just the way you are.
Yeah. No, but there was something in what you said that felt like grace. That felt less like striving for perfection with every ending and beginning, and more like accepting that the flow is what it is.
And your mother's, one of the most common questions she uses in her therapies is that she asks the client, can you live with that? When they talk about choices. Can you live with that your husband is as he is? Can you live with that? I mean, there's some reconciliation in saying, oh, I can live with this. And if you can't, maybe you should try to avoid it or leave it or leave behind. But that's not always a possible choice. But I could live with it. Maybe I could even die with it. This imperfection in my life. Yeah.
I often think that for any relationship, whether with ourselves or with somebody else, is less about looking for the perfection that we desire and more about understanding which imperfections we're willing to live with. And giving ourselves and others the grace to not focus on them so much.
Exactly.
Or let them take up all the air.
Exactly. You could love what you can love and you could stand the other things.
Yeah.
Realistic expectations.
Realistic expectations. I like that. That feels human. It's interesting because we had a pre-conversation to this conversation where we talked about something different, and this conversation went in a completely different direction, which is equally beautiful. Unexpected openings. That was the practice.
Yes.
Yeah. As is life. What, for anyone who's been listening to our diving into unexpected openings, is there anything that's emerged for you as an invitation for them? Something to take with them into their life, into their practice?
We're approaching a part of life that is close to advice. And that is not my favorite position, because I always think I don't know anything
About
other
anything.
people's, no, about other people's, how they live and how they interpret what they end up in. Who am I to tell? So who should listen?
Oh, that I don't know either.
No. Or what could they be curious about?
Yeah, maybe
Maybe.
I've heard you give this metaphor before of shining a flashlight somewhere.
Yeah.
I guess this is the opportunity I'm offering us to shine a little bit more strongly a flashlight somewhere, and each person who listens will decide on their own if they look in that direction. Maybe they already looked in some other direction. Personally, very much like you, I shy away from advice and formulas. I lead with questions. So I think this is an opening to leave a question on the table.
Well, I think one question maybe should be, how can we live a life that is connected, open to both grace and grit? Maybe. How can we live? How can we find that we could experience as a foundation from where we could enter this day? I learned from a French palliative doctor this summer that she always wraps up conversations with her patients with a question: what could I wish for you for the rest of your day? I like that very much, because it's both what can I wish, it's about can I do something for you, and what is the wish that I could send out into the universe for you, and then come this beautiful little ending for the rest of this day. I mean, it's not that big.
No.
It's about this day. Is there anything we could hope for together for this day?
I've received that on so many dimensions, that question.
Yeah.
Wow.
So maybe we should end all our conversations with, what could I wish for you for the rest of your day?
Oh, I love that question. I don't know how a question can make you feel that emotional, but I really felt that.
And if I should pose that question to you now, what could I wish for you for the rest of your day?
I don't even know how to answer that. Oh. What could you wish for me for the rest of my day? Today, I'm inclined to say flow. I've been in a very creative moment and I'm enjoying it. So that's a wish I'll take.
That's good, because I would frame it as a prayer, namely,
Mm.
in my way of working, and that's how I live my life. So I will send a prayer for you into the universe, wishing you flow for the rest of your day.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
And what could I wish for you for the rest of your day?
I think you could wish that I will have a good conversation with one of my co-workers that I'm going to have after work, where we're trying to find our ways in work with advanced pain medication. That's an important meeting. So you could wish for me that what she is going to tell me about my project will be good news. Will you do that for me?
Yes. Holding that hope and that intention with you. And as I always do when I do these things, I even always have a candle lit. So sending that with the lights.
That's nice. Thanks.
Oh, what a good question.
I will tell you afterwards if the conversation ended
Please
up
do.
in an okay.
If the energy coming your way worked. In our mutual reluctance to spell out advice or carve a direction for someone else, we find ourselves left with this one magical question. What could I wish for you for the rest of your day? I have to admit, it filled my heart. One sentence that acknowledges that there is a you and a me, and that we get to be part of each other's intentions and lives. We each find our own paths to connection, be it inwards or outwards into the depth of our being or out into the edges of the universe. And so it matters not that we walk the same steps, because we most likely won't, but that we can be brave enough to ask, what is important for you today? And how might I hold you in it? If this episode has in any way shed light on your path, opened a small window to a new opportunity, given you something new to explore, can I ask a small thing of you? A little act of connection in this vast digital space. Send this episode on to somebody else who needs it. Share it. And if you want to support more conversations about learning from trees, being creative, and expanding our interactions with life, don't forget to follow on your favorite podcast platform and give us a rating. That's how more people can join this conversation. Thank you so much for listening.